What's up, y'all? It's Animaine Sparkster,
And Dani Marie.
and we are back with another episode of the Unapologetics podcast, where if we said it, we ain't taking none of it back. And today I'm coming to you with a new voice. Y'all heard my last episode where I said, when I make it, I'm gonna have Greydon Square on. Well, that day is today. I have the man himself, leader, creator of Grand Unified Theory, Greydon Square.
Hey,
What's up, Greydon?
Hey, I can't complain. How about yourself?
Oh man, it's all good. It's all good. Man, I can't tell you how good it is to have you on the show, man. You have meant more to me than I can probably say, but man, like you were instrumental in my deconversion from Christianity.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you having me. And to all the people who listen to your show, hey, how you doing? Peace.
Yeah, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Greydon.
Well, I mean, I guess first I would open that up by saying that I would liken myself to any typical product of his environment growing up in LA in the 80s and the 90s, through the height of gang culture, through the height of racial division in LA between, black and brown, and, kind of having to navigate life with no parents as an orphan. I grew up in group homes, was in the system my entire life. I didn't meet or even speak to my biological mother until I was 12. And obviously found out that she was not the type of person that deserved a son, basically. And I'm going to basically say it like that. And at the end of the day, I think we were just better off without each other. She was a 15-year-old having kids, and I was a kid who needed parents. So we obviously did not probably cosmically need each other. But unfortunately, we were related, and she had her situation that caused me to end up in the system. And, I bear the brunt of that reality. It taught me very early the difference between nature and society, something that would be, re-ingrained into my memory when I was deployed later on, when I was deployed to Iraq, shortly after 9/11. But I mean, I grew up as an avid fan of science and technology, and I had a lot of wonder as a kid, even though I grew up in an area where you had to hide your intelligence to basically fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And, the more intelligent you appeared, the more of a target you became. And so I had to, I had to hide my intelligence, to fit in with gangbangers, because at a certain level, there's a ceiling there. It's like there's only certain things you can really talk about, and anything that exceeds that ceiling, you tend to be looked at in a different light. So I had to constantly do things and be involved in situations that would quote unquote prove, that I was down, but still at the end of the day at home, I'm watching, Star Trek Next Generation and Stargate and Sliders, and I'm reading, Michio Kaku's Hyperspace, and but I'm a kid that's living off of 157th and Keene or 136th and Parmalee, right behind Centennial High School. Like, at the end of the day, I lived and grew up and became, at least a young man in the city of Compton. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people, I guess, I'm not going to say overlook, but they just don't identify me as a product of Compton, because I don't sit around and champion Compton. Oh, I'm from Compton. No, I don't do that, because the stuff that I talk about, I can't leverage the city of Compton on. You see, what I tried to do was I tried to separate myself from anybody in Compton who could rap about the stuff that I'm rapping about. I always look at it like this, and I always said it like this. I can rap like any rapper in Compton, but you find another rapper from Compton who can rap like me.
Right.
Plain and simple. And I don't, that's no disrespect to anybody, from the hub. That's no disrespect to anybody from LA, from the West Coast, or just in hip hop in general. But I felt like the only way I could really separate myself from any other kid from that area, from Compton, Watts, Gardena, Paramount, Rosewood, Long Beach, wherever that area, San Pedro, any kid from that area, I wanted to separate myself and distinguish myself by being highly, highly, highly intellectual. I wanted to be the West Coast Cannabis. I wanted to be the most articulate rapper the West Coast had ever seen, had ever heard. I wanted to be considered the smartest rapper who ever lived. That's what I want.
Damn.
So the identifying with just West Coast gangbangerism, yes, there was a time early in my life where I was like that. But as I approached type 1, as I started to realize what the Kardashev scale was and what transhumanism was and what trans-intellectualism would ultimately be defined as something that I would create, as an ideology that I would cement in people's minds. I tried to make myself fundamentally different from anything that came out of Compton, so that anybody who just says, "Oh, I'm from Compton," it's like, yeah, but what do you bring to Compton? What attributes do you have that basically that's the opposite of you just trading on being from a city that's famous for something? Because I didn't want that. I wanted, I didn't want anybody to be like, "Oh, that's another guy out of Compton." I wanted to be like, "That dude is dope. Oh, by the way, he's from Compton."
Yeah, and I can definitely say I've never heard, definitely not any other rapper, but especially from Compton. Like if you think about like The Game or something like that.
Game is one example. Let's talk about a Kendrick. Let's talk about, someone who is considered an intellectual, someone who is considered a lyricist in the game of hip hop. At the end of the day, he's considered, highly skilled, and he's considered, talented for what he does, and he's considered advanced intellectually. But I would challenge anybody, listening to his music, comparing it to mine. I know it's apples and oranges because we're not nowhere near the same thing what we're talking about, nor are we talking to the same generation. I'm just saying lyrically with content, the intellectual content, what I'm saying is I challenge anybody to find anyone from that region, from the entire West Coast, who's talking about the advanced topics that I'm talking about. I'm talking about variations of the standard model. I'm talking about Everettian interpretations of quantum mechanics. I'm talking about, different types of multiverses. Leonard Susskind's landscape multiverse. I'm talking about high type 2s and low type 3 type species that have the ability to manipulate some of the fundamental components of nature in ways that theists may look at deities, So I was just, when I say all of that, I say it in the context of find someone else who has tried to study what I've tried to study to put into rhyme form what I've tried to put into rhyme form. And that's not to take anything away from anybody who's come before me or who will come after me. I just tried to distinguish myself.
Right. Now break that down a little bit for me right there when you're talking about trans-intellectuals and transhumanism. Post-bong hit, of course.
Post-bong hit. I appreciate you indulging me. Well, transhumanism obviously predates trans-intellectualism because trans-intellectualism was something that I created back in type 2 to describe what a fan of mine was actually, what their ideology was. People, talked about a lot of times, Gray, I wish I could, identify what specifically about you I identify with and what I agree with. And I boiled it down to this idea of which I called it trans-intellectualism. But it's really an offshoot of transhumanism in the way that I think both ideologies seek to advance the human species. I just think one is much more broad in how that gets done. Trans-intellectualism for me was defined as, or at least a trans-intellectual was defined as a person who sought movement up and across the Kardashev scale by use of education through creativity. And so the trans-intellectual was a person who recognized that there was different levels to what a technological species could ascribe to, type 1, type 2, type 3, and so on. And the idea behind the Kardashev scale was simply, being a planetary species at type 1, being a global species, being able to harness, all of the energy from the planet, being a globally unified planet in which, some of the things that we deal with today, we don't necessarily deal with. Yes, there's other problems. I'm not a person who's trying to pitch a utopia here, but most of the issues that pre-Cartesian civilizations deal with, post-Cartesian civilizations would not theoretically have to deal with. For instance, energy shortages and world hunger and we see some of the examples now in our world, like, a type 1 communication system, which is what basically the internet is. The internet is basically a type 1 communication system. It's a global interactive net that connects people in a way not unsimilar to a hive mind. But then you kind of go up the scale from type 1 to type 2, where you're now venturing into the ocean of space, so much so that you're able to harness the energy of your host star, or able to harness the energy of a star itself. And this is where things get tricky, because then we start speculating from type 2 to type 3. Is it possible for a species to evolve even beyond that, to be able to harness the power from multiple stars, to become even galactic? And then there's, even much more fringe science that argues the type 4s and, dark matter and dark energy manipulators, and able to manipulate the cosmological constants in certain ways. And it's a very fascinating way to look at the world and to look at potentiality among living beings and intellectual beings. So once I got a hold of that information, just talking about just LA politics, about gangs and, just all that stuff I couldn't do it anymore. I had too much information in my head to talk about girls and jewelry or money or cars or, the struggle. I couldn't even talk about the struggle. Because the struggle was reduced to this kind of base human attribute where everyone experiences the struggle everywhere you are. Just because you're a first worlder and you experience first world struggle don't mean you have any idea what second world, a third world struggle is. And from that perspective, you don't understand the struggle of an animal bred simply for sustenance for another species. I mean, there's different levels of horror in existence that we obviously have to acknowledge. But where I was going with it was trying to identify and get people who identify with my music to identify with forward thinking. And I couldn't do that if I was looking back trying to rap about the same things that other people were rapping about.
Yeah, man, it's like you, not to put other people down, but it's like you're a giant, or you're this huge being that's just sitting around. Like, I'm sitting here trying to rewrite the rules of the universe, and y'all niggas still talking about what you gonna order at McDonald's. I can't do this. I can't.
And this is, and I appreciate that, but, and this is why I have a hard time being impressed, I guess is the word, or taking notice to what people consider our new lyrical rappers. You know what I mean? Like, that's not to disrespect anybody. I'm not going to call anybody's name out and act like, I'm speaking about anybody specific, because I'm really not. When people say, have you heard of this guy? And, my defenses go up because, first of all, everybody always wants to know what the hell I think about some other rapper. And it's like, why do you give a shit what I care? I don't care what you think about how I feel about other rappers. Why do you care about how I feel about rappers you listen to? But that's beside the point. I just feel like those other rappers that I'm brought, or that people try to bring to my attention, intellectually, they're boring. Intellectually, they're not stimulating at all. Like, I don't get no dopamine shot. I don't get, like, it's so lacking intellectually from my perspective. Now, obviously, I don't expect everybody out there to be reading the physics book and, Endless Universe and the Big Bang model. I don't expect everybody to read that stuff. I don't even expect everybody to be interested in that. But from my vantage point, from my perspective, from me, it's nearly impossible for me to find intellectual stimulation amongst the quote unquote, new lyricists of today. I find the even describing them in that way somewhat offensive to what I try to do. But that's just me. And I guess I'm supposed to think like that because I'm a highly competitive individual.
Man, you got some, Danny? You even a little quiet over there. Chime in at any point.
I'm just listening. No, I actually think it's really interesting what you're saying because you're right in the sense that once you attain that kind of information, it's just so hard to kind of go back into the everyday life and just accept what everyone else sees as being um, perfection or greatness.
Right.
Like it's so hard to go back and just accept that, and it does make it difficult to like just see things the way other people see them in general. I think that's really interesting, but it's clear that you are not even in the same category as other lyricists. Like you're just not.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. There are some people that I do consider, and this is the way I divide this up, right? Because I think we've accepted now hip hop is in its 30s, right? Hip hop is grown now, so we need to start having more grown conversations about hip hop. Let's stop with the top fives. Unless you're gonna have more than 5 people in your top 5, don't talk to me about your top 5 because it's impossible. Right? Because then we start talking about why I think that Tupac shouldn't be in your top 5 and why Big L should take his spot or Big Pun should take his spot, or Tech Nine should take his spot or whoever, right? Who is a lyrical technician or superior to, what Tupac did. No disrespect to Pac. I'm not, I know we can't even talk about our demigods in hip hop.
Nah, man, you coming for the sacred cow, right?
Because you can't have a difference of opinion, right? I can't have a difference of opinion. I need to make sure I think right along with the group think, because if not, well, what's wrong with what we think? No, it's just how I think, right? But I guess I'm at the point now where you're right. Once you maintain or once you attain that type of information, it becomes almost like a Where's Waldo in trying to find something that does intellectually stimulate you in that way. And I try to separate it like this. In martial arts, you have, the beginners, you have the novices, you have intermediates, you have experts, you have masters, and usually those are defined by belt levels, right? So no one really cares. They know about the white belts. No one really cares until you get up to a brown belt and a black belt, and then in certain martial art disciplines, a red belt or a red and black belt and a red belt, right? So I subscribe to that system. I believe that there are brown belts in hip hop, there are black belts in hip hop, and there are red belts in hip hop. As few as they are, there are a few grandmasters who have walked this earth, the Rakims, the Eminems of the world, people like that, who you can definitively say, this person is a grandmaster at what we do. And you can't really dispute it because their body of work speaks for itself. So I simply have always, in hip hop, have strived to work my way up the belt system. I was a white belt once. I was a yellow belt. I was a green belt. I was a purple belt. I was a brown belt. I was a black belt, or I am a black belt right now. But I'm not done. I strive for that red belt. I strive for grandmaster status. Masterhood is good. But when you can attain grandmaster status, when you can do more for the art with your influence than you can simply with your skill level, when you can do more with your experience than you can with your physical ability, that's when you have real effect on a culture. That's when you have real effect on a craft. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. And that actually brings up another point that I wanted to make, where listening to you for as long as I have, one thing I can definitely appreciate about you, other than the fact that you rip through theism like nobody else, because.
Oh wait, Animaine. I'm not sure what your favorite part about Great Experience.
Why did I invite you on this call again?
Because I'm awesome.
Yeah, okay. But back to my point, Animaine. What I appreciate about you is you've always valued what you're doing and the craft and what you're giving to society with your music more than just the fact that, oh, I'm dope, or I can spit a hot 16, I can do this. I mean, when I think about like the typical person who thinks about what they want to do when they imagine themselves being a great rapper, it's just that they're just a rapper. It's like, okay, you can spit, you're nice, but what are you doing? What are you actually putting into your art? What does your art mean? And I see you as someone who values what you're saying and what people can get from that and the experience and having us be with you on that experience more than just the fact that, oh, you can rap.
Hmm. I've never looked at it that way. I've never really. I think that's something that, you know, given some thought, I would agree with. But simply because that value comes from the value that I place on the effect that it could have on the human race. And so, remember, as a trans intellectual, my goal is to help the species move up the Kardashev scale through my creativity and through my education. And so,
Right.
if I can do that by reading this book or that book and turning that into a 16 bar verse or a 32 bar verse or a 24 bar verse, then to me, I am obligated. I feel compelled
Right.
to convey that information because there's a kid in a group home right now, and he or she will come across a Greydon Square for some reason, and they will listen, and they will want to know if there's enough value in them for you to take the time out to read this book and convey it in a 16 bar verse.
Yeah. Real shit, man. Real shit. And I love it. I fucking love it. And although I wasn't one of the group home kids, I found your stuff, like I said, my first year of college. And you want to talk about Fundy? Yo, you remember the whole, what do they call it? The blasphemy challenge?
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember the song you made for Rational Response. That was the first song of yours I heard. For those of you who don't know, Graydon Square is a would you even consider yourself a atheist rapper at this point?
Well, I mean, the tagline for Greydon Square, the brand, is the atheist rapper, simply because that's what I became popular as. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you listen to my music, there's not just atheist content there, right? I mean, I talk about
Right.
technology, I talk about other sciences. There are, you know, whole albums where I basically don't mention gods or, you know, atheism or anti-religious anything for nearly the entire album. And I'll make
Yeah.
remarks here or there, obviously, because maybe I had a thought here and there about it. But there was a time in my life where I went through that period of deconversion. I went through that period of trying to figure out what the universe was and how it reconciled with what I was taught as a kid, based on where I was born and who taught it to me. Um, so, I mean, I don't know. I think these days, if you look at what I try to bring to the table, um, there's always been an element of, you know, questioning everything, right? And gods are among that. But I've
Right.
also, you know, talked a lot about being a veteran, being a group home kid, you know, being a musician struggling against an industry, you know, self doubt and you know, my past and my child abuse growing up, you know. There's so many other things that I've tried to talk about and write entire songs about. I mean, I wrote a song about a non-theistic afterlife. No one says a word about that. But when it comes to, you know, the anti-religious music or the atheist music, you know, that's what people will know me from. And you know, I don't make any bones about that because I can't really control how people view me and anything like that. I mean, I guess I can try to just do a whole campaign where I'm telling people not to call me an atheist rapper, but I don't really care like that because I know that when I die and my music will be judged against, you know, history, and my discography will be judged against history, I feel like it won't really matter that I was an atheist rapper or not. I think that will be a footnote. I think trans-intellectualism will ultimately be what I'm remembered for, because most of the fans that I have identify with trans-intellectual ideology, which is, you
Mm-hmm.
know, movement up the Kardashev scale. How do we get to type 1? How do we get to type 2? How do we get to type 3?
Yeah. Yeah. And I even had to come to that realization or re-realization of that earlier this week because, you know, back when you first hit me up, I was, going through the old songs and the stuff that was part of what got me questioning Christianity in the first place. And then it dawned on me, it's like, hold up, I gotta check the new Greydon Square out. I've done this man a disservice. So I went back and I was listening to Omniverse,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, nigga, what?
Oh man. Yeah.
Like, yo, like in a good way though, but like, yo, like talk about the fucking progression, like comparing like '08, '07, or '08 Greydon Square
Mm-hmm.
to Omniverse
Right.
is like playing Street Fighter 2 and then going like immediately like to Street Fighter 5. Speaking of Street Fighter 2, that joint Extra P where you sampled Dalsim's
Oh yeah.
his end theme, I'm like, yo, first of all, this nigga's a nerd. I knew it. I fucks with him.
Well, I'll say this because the previous album I had sampled Killer Instinct, and
Oh nigga.
somebody had told me was like, well, you got to do, you got to do the other fighting games, right? So they were hitting me up with like, remember Eternal Champions, and then one dude hit me up with Samurai Showdown. Another dude was like, you should do Final Fight. I'm like, dog, I'm not sampling all the old fighter games, but. I'll be honest with you. When I was a kid in a group home, right, I was a kid who escaped through music, right? Music wasn't just therapy for me. It was a way that I escaped my reality of being, the isolation of orphanism. So for me, getting attached to a video game tune, I remember I used to hum when I used to take a shower at night. I used to hum the themes from Street Fighter in the shower because it was such captivating music to me. I remember just not being able to get E Honda's stage music or Ken's stage music or Chun-Li's stage music out of my head. And so it influenced me to chase music because I needed to understand how to reproduce that feeling. So, yeah, I think, when we're talking about just the nerd effect of music or the nerd impact that my music has had on me, I start thinking about stuff like, sampling Dalsim from Street Fighter or sampling Spinal from Killer Instinct or, other samples that I've made from video games and other science fiction realms that really just define my love for science and sci-fi as a genre, because I feel like there's not enough black people who identify with science fiction and, kind of forward thinking. And it's sad because, it really separates us from higher forms of thinking and higher forms of consideration. We have this kind of base level identification with certain things. Like, we'll love to talk about, love and hip hop. But if you ask them about, Star Trek Deep Space Nine or Stargate, they'll look at you like you got a booger on your face. And it's like, how did that happen? How were we conditioned to where that is what is going on? But that's kind of what's going on, I mean, and I have a few theories as to why that's the case, but.
Definitely, if you ever need someone to chop it up about some of this science fiction shit, you ever watch Outlaw Star?
No, I haven't, and it depends on when it came out. I could tell you why I hadn't watched it.
It's an anime from the late '90s.
Okay, so no, I probably just missed this. I didn't even get into anime until so I watched Ninja Scroll, I watched Ghost in the Shell. And I would be lying to you if I said I was a fan of anime. I like those movies. In fact, I love Ninja Scroll. That was one of the dopest movies I remember seeing as a kid as an anime. Remember? Because that was one of the few movies you can get that was rated R like that. Like, you didn't know, especially in the 90s, right? People think because the internet's been around the way it has been, that, it was like that all the time. Like, I remember when Banned from TV, the documentary was hard to find. You couldn't get it anywhere. And now it's literally everything is a click away. But
it's the click away.
Yeah. But I digress. No, I never watched that movie simply because I wasn't really exposed to the bulk of anime until much later on in my life.
Okay, so you just zoomed right over Toonami. Now you'd be a little older than the age range that Toonami was aiming for.
Right, a little bit, because I know Toonami does like Cowboy Bebop and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. See, that missed me, man. I mean, the only Toonami style stuff that I even messed with was like the Boondocks, and that was only because I identified with that as a young black kid. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't really even identify with that show like I used to.
Man, who you telling? Look, I'll watch season 1 and 2
Me
of the
too.
Boondocks
But
now,
3
and
and
I'll be like,
4,
yo, this shit goes so hard. And then
yeah.
I think I tried to watch something from season 3 the other day. I watched the Hateocracy. I'm like, nigga, what the fuck happened to this show?
And
And
that's
then
actually one
season
of the
4
better,
came
and
out.
that's actually one of the better episodes from that season.
It
Like it
is
actually
no,
kind of went
because
down for me.
everyone want to bring up the joint when Riley was selling candy like he was selling drugs, and then they had the shootout. I'm like, yo, first off, you ain't bringing up Hateocracy.
Right.
You ain't bringing up the joint smoking with cigarettes, where the whole thing was like fucking juice and the good son.
No, no, no.
Like, yeah, but I don't know. I can't even talk about Boondocks right now. I'm so mad.
Yeah, I mean it.
I guess
I look at Boondocks a lot like, well, I'm not like Game of Thrones, but there was a time where I watched it, and then one day I realized what I was watching, and I was like, this shit's kind of whack, and I
Yeah,
stopped watching it.
I think the last one actually, me and Danny, we tried to sit down and watch it because when they announced Boondocks were coming back, I'm like, oh shit, they about to try this shit again. And we watched 1 episode, 2 episodes. I think we got to episode 3 before she just tapped out.
yeah,
And
because they did an episode about like the plantation um theme park thing, and I was like, I'm not watching that shit. I
I
don't
remember that shit.
I remember that
Yo,
episode. I actually remember that episode she's talking about. Yeah.
God, I had deleted that from my brain, yo. I had deleted that shit out of my brain.
never forget the Chris Brown episode though. I don't think it was good, but I just think that it's funny that they did a Chris Brown episode. I don't know.
Oh yeah, the joint when they had Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit. Man, but fucking yeah, Boondocks was real, at a good point. But now that Boondocks is gone, and it's probably gonna be gone because Aaron McGruder, he's moved on to Black Jesus, even if he's even still doing that. Like, the scene is set and primed for. Unfortunately, we can only have like one good black cartoon or black show because reasons. But the stage is ready for a new one, and I think we really need one like done in the similar vein of Boondocks, but one with more of a sci-fi feel. I'm ready for this shit.
Yeah, but then
It
you
needs
have to address the fact that the general culture they're not really into sci-fi like that because science fiction plays in a certain space, right? Like, and I mean that figuratively and literally, right? Most of sci-fi is in space or in the future or dealing with aliens or dealing with time travel paradoxes and stuff like that. If the general public doesn't even like evolutionary science, what makes you think they're going to be interested in temporal paradoxes? Like, it doesn't add up because that's not what we're being programmed to value. That's not what we're being programmed to like. At the end of the day, women don't fuck dudes who are astrophysicists. They fuck basketball players. So at the end of the day, you strive more because it's rewarded biologically to be a basketball player than it is to be an astrophysicist. I guarantee you, if astrophysicists were knee deep in pussy, we would be on the moon. We would be on Mars already. We would like it just you wouldn't have any resistance towards that. So, yeah.
The great biological imperative.
I'm telling you.
Never fails, man.
I mean, do you think there's a way to get people more interested in it? Like, I mean, you can have the same storylines in a different type of environment, and I think draw a bigger crowd. Like, it doesn't have to be so far sci-fi that it doesn't reach like the basic common denominator.
Well, I mean, they tried. I think they tried that with Prometheus, and Prometheus was supposed to be like a sci-fi that was ultimately everyone could kind of relate to with the characters, and it was a shithole. Like, that movie was one of the worst movies I remember.
Well,
Oh, you mean it was that? You mean it wasn't Avatar?
Shit, I actually enjoyed Avatar. If you can get past the fact that it's Avatar, you can enjoy it.
If I can get the fact that it's Fern Gully, Pocahontas.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, those stories to me were, first of all, they weren't that great of a movie. If you're going to compare Fern Gully to Avatar or Pocahontas, I'm going to watch Avatar every single time, just visually. right? Just even the scene alone where the guys in the bad guys in the mech and he's fighting Neytiri in the thing, like when they're flying around. I know it's on some woo woo spiritual nonsense. Like I get that. Like it's never been entertaining to me on that level. But just watching it as a movie that was, we don't really have any landmark movies, I feel like, in the last 10 years. Like, what's a landmark movie other than the Avengers? Okay, you got the Avengers. I feel like it's a landmark movie. What's another landmark movie? I feel like Avatar was one of those movies.
It was.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd much rather watch that final scene with the mechs and fighting the trees and the creatures in space nature, other than watching fairies fight a giant smoke cloud.
Yeah, man.
Just a little bit more.
People like to say that Avatar was Ferngully, but Ferngully was terrible. Okay, go back and try to watch Ferngully. It does not hold up over time.
Nigga, the only reason I remember that movie is because Tim Curry was singing his ass off, and that will get me to watch damn near anything. Is Tim Curry in here being Tim Curry as fuck? But other than that, there really is nothing memorable or remarkable about the movie at all.
Right.
Not at all.
And then Pocahontas at least had the privilege of being a Disney movie. I don't even think Ferngully was a Disney movie.
Nah, that was I don't even remember. That was Fox.
New
that was
Line
Fox.
Cinema or something
Fox.
like that. Yeah, I wasn't even a Disney
No,
movie. So it's like, I mean, that's third on this list right now.
Yeah. Dani, out with it. I can see something on your face. Out with it.
What? There wasn't.
Okay. First of all, you sound like you're transforming. Second of all,
my phone vibrated. With Prometheus, I don't think it was a good movie. And it also was like a prequel to the Alien series as well. So it wasn't really like as separated. Like, I think there's a way to do it. I just think there's a way to do it where it does reach masses. I think Avatar is actually a good example. There's a lot of people liked it because it was just interesting to look at, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. But it also had, I mean, even though it wasn't done well, the ideas behind it were not as like conventional as some other movies. It wasn't done well.
Prometheus, I'll say this about Prometheus. It made scientists look like emotional idiots in that movie. And very impulsive. Like it just, I mean, I don't know, man. There was so many things I hated about that movie. It was just, I really didn't like it. Oh, this too? Oh, hell yeah. I was going to say. But, I know people who do like that movie, and as far as it being a prequel to Aliens, you can't just throw the skull of the alien in at the end of the movie and have me buy that it's an Alien prequel. Like, they didn't throw no thought into relating it to the actual Alien movies other than explaining really nothing. Like, there was nothing really explained at the end of that movie other than, at the end, there's this thing that pops out of this egg, and it's an alien, a small version of the fucking... So I don't know. I just so many things wrong with that movie. I couldn't stand that movie. And I'm usually pretty friendly and lenient with sci-fi, because that's my favorite genre. So it's like I want it to be good.
Yeah. So what's more your speed? I know you mentioned Star Trek.
Yeah. Anything with star in the title is probably going to get a good review from me, except for Star Wars because that's fantasy, not sci-fi. But let's see, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, Stargate, Battlestar Galactica, Farscape. Sliders is a great show. That's actually one of my favorite shows. What else do I watch a lot of? Surprisingly, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is incredibly sci-fi. Not the new movie, in case anybody was thinking I was talking about the new movie. I'm talking about the new TV show on Nickelodeon. It's so good. They rarely go lower than a B- in my book. They've had a couple of subpar episodes, but all in all, that's a fantastic show. I'm so glad it exists.
Yeah, the one I'm fucking with for life is The one from '03. You remember the like the '02, '03
Yeah,
Turtles?
yeah. That's a,
I
you know
fuck with
what?
that joint
That's
hard.
a much better Turtles representation than I gave it credit for. It's this one. I think I don't know if you've seen the 2012 version, but the 2012 version is to me the best. I don't know if you want to call it a refresh, if you want to call it a reboot of the core story. But what they do
Hmm.
is they confirm the events in Turtles Forever. Basically,
Okay, the
so
little
the
multiverse joint.
multiverse. So they solidify the ideology of the multiverse in the Turtles universe, which, you know, it's really cool because they have episodes that cross over into that movie.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, dog, it's nuts. They just did an episode called
Shit.
Trans-Dimensional Turtles, man. I'm not gonna say nothing, but let's just say,
Hmm.
well done, well done.
All right, I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. Going back to Star Trek real quick. What you think about these new Star Trek movies?
Terrible. But let's be honest with you. But let's be real. They're not made. They're not made for Trekkies, right? They're made for casual Star Wars fans who go to movies and stuff. Like they're trying to milk the Star Trek name, and obviously they want. If they were trying to make Star Trek for the fans, you know, Trekkies, I feel like they would have done it in a way that was first of all in the Prime universe. Second of all, given more closure than Nemesis, which was a terrible fucking movie. And I feel like they would have moved forward from the Dominion War in a way that would have shown the Federation in a much more realistic light, like they did in Deep Space Nine. So, to me, you would have got a gritty, you would have got a kind of dark Knight version of Star Trek had they done it in the Prime universe, because Star Trek had just came off of a fucking of a huge war. The Dominion War was basically the biggest war in Star Trek's canon, except for the other war from Enterprise. But it's like they really chose the easy way out in trying to cast very popular people from Hollywood to play very iconic roles. And while I think they did a fantastic job in what they were trying to do, I mean, to me, it didn't feel Star Trek to me. It felt Star Wars. It just felt very Star Wars to me.
It felt like, I know J.J. Abrams did it, but it felt almost like if Michael Bay
Mm-hmm.
looked at Star Trek and
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, okay, now let me show y'all how to really do Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because even with the latest Star Wars movie, since it has that Abrams look of like, because I'm so attached to Star Wars, I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna see what it's about. But I can see from jump how what really made this series what it was. This ain't what this movie about. We about these explosions.
Mm-hmm.
We about these big ass fights.
Things
Nothing's
coming out
really
of
gonna
black
make
holes.
sense,
Yeah.
right? It's about all these sexy shots. It's like let's get it. I
The
mean,
lens flare. How much
lens
flare did they
flare on
use?
fleek. Lens flare on fleek. I guess I appreciate it for, like you said, doing like for what it is and not trying to make it more. But if you compare it to the actual universe that it's supposed to be based in or come from, it really doesn't stand up.
Well, I knew it was. I wasn't going to like it in the way that I wasn't gonna love it when it wasn't in the Prime universe. J.J. Abrams basically said that this is an independent universe. If Star Trek can basically have two primary universes, and it does, right? You have the main universe and you have the mirror universe, and they both coincide with each other. Why can't we have another universe, the Abrams verse? And I'm like, okay, that's cool, whatever. But with what he did with it, I wasn't really feeling it. And to me, there's only one way to do a Star Trek show now. And if they don't do it this way, they're going to fuck the brand up forever. And Star Trek will simply be Star Trek will be Gunsmoke if they're not careful. I'm being completely real, because they're playing with it right now. They're acting like they can just throw some sexy name in the captain's chair. And, look, I love Angela Bassett. She's one of my first main crushes in Hollywood. It's like, but no, the more I think about it, the more I don't want her on Star Trek, because ultimately I don't know what that's going to cost, but it's going to cost a lot. And I guarantee you they're not going to be able to fill out those other roles with the remaining money, with the amount of talent that they're going to need to play off of her and to keep enough interest in the show to keep it continually interesting. Like, at the end of the day, Scott Bakula being the captain on the Enterprise hurt more than it helped. We didn't need a known actor for a prequel. They just fucked that whole thing up. But we didn't need a known actor for that. Scott Bakula was known for Quantum Leap in a way that we always saw him as that. We never saw him as a captain of a starship.
Mm.
So anyway, I could go on about that forever.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming through, man, and chopping it up with us. There was one more thing I wanted to ask you before we let you go.
I was young. I needed the money. No, I'm sorry.
Yo, this nigga, I fuck with him. But one of our other co-hosts, Indigo, he is huge fan. He unfortunately couldn't make it. Some last minute stuff came up, but he wanted to get something from you. He wanted to get your take on the state of Black America today. He just wanted to know what you felt about it, just in general. Yeah, I know. I probably picked the worst time to ask that question because now we're gonna be here for another hour.
Yeah, you mean fatherhood? You mean fathers? You mean fatherhood optional Black America? You mean that Black America? You mean no lives matters Black America, especially our own? It's like, nah, dog. Oh man.
So you just total disillusionment.
I mean, listen. From a type 3 perspective, I'm trying not to trample ants. Like, I'm not trying to make this just about what's wrong with Black people. You know, this is kind of the complacency and the ignorance of just human beings in general. But I feel like specifically when we're talking about our own, we don't have enough self-reflection and honesty to really progress. And I believe, honestly, in the next 150 to 200 years, dark-skinned Black people will be breeded out of existence because we can't deal with each other anymore. Our women hate our men and our men hate our women. So, you know, ultimately, you're not going to have the type of Black people, American Blacks, right? Like I'm not talking about, you know, non-American Blacks, but simply domestic American Blacks. We're going to be breeded out of existence because our nature tends to be, in a lot of cases, destructive to ourselves and to each other. And we have a kind of motto where it's like, if you ain't with me, then you against me, and therefore I must destroy you. We sit up and we talk Black Lives Matter when we walk past each other and we're afraid to look at each other and say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I can't look at my fellow brother, my fellow Black brother, without him looking at me defensively. I could be looking at him thinking like, hey, man, you look like a dude I know. Instead, he's looking at me like, why are you looking at me? We value and our priorities are so completely out of whack that we love people we should really despise. And we despise people we should actually like. I don't know why Black people are getting behind Hillary Clinton, not knowing that, you know, Bill Clinton helped put in a lot of those mandatory minimums that put a lot of Black people in jail. And we talk about like how a third of our population is in jail. Yeah, we about to vote a woman in office who basically was, you know, not even fucking the dude who put him there. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Black people, we need a lot of help. We need a lot of education and information. That is where we're most lacking because we don't value information the way that other cultures do. And lastly, this fatherhood optional culture is what's really killing our families. We have been conditioned now to think over the last 25 years that you don't need no father. He don't need no father. He got his mama. He got his mama. It's okay. He got his mama. No, that little nigga need a fucking father. We all did. So half of us wouldn't be out there running the streets, gangbanging and trying to sell a little this or sell this, a little bit of that just to get by. We would have had some purpose in our lives. We would have had names with values and companies to inherit. Nah, he got his mama though. He got his auntie. He got his grandmama though. When his father come around, she do everything in her possible way to either devalue him, put push him away or make sure that he can't be a father to his child. And of course, it's not all. I know we're going to go there too. That ain't all. But it's enough for it to be an issue. There's no accountability in the black culture right now. I feel like we're looking mostly to blame instead of take responsibility. If we are the original man, then we are originally responsible. We shuck this responsibility and we shuck this accountability when we should own it. If I'm the original man, then ultimately the responsibility falls on me. I failed. Now, if I'm willing to accept that and look myself in the mirror, okay, cool. But let's not act like we're really turning over that stone, having a real look at ourselves in the mirror, because we're not. We don't have these conversations amongst ourselves. So as far as I'm concerned, like I said, we need a lot of help. We need a lot of information. And if we're not careful, we'll be extinct. I give the over-under on that 150 years. If we're not careful, pushing each other away, destroying each other's lives just because we're angry and emotional. Like we were raised only by our mama.
Yeah, I definitely should have asked this earlier in the interview.
Well, be glad you asked it now, because the whole interview would have been about that.
No. Dani, you got a lot on your mind there, a lot going through. You got something to say?
I mean, I think part of that, what am I trying to say? Part of that cultural mindset of
fatherhood optional.
Pushing that away and using that as a tool or doing it out of anger. It's really like deep rooted. Like I don't think it's something that's a cultural thing that we've only just learned. Like it's definitely
something I agree with that.
Since slavery. But I do think, like, I agree in the sense that I don't think it's right to push someone out of your child's life. Like you should want to be involved and you should want the other parent to be involved as much as possible. I think it's important, to have like a support system, to have actual parents, to have people making decisions for the betterment of their children, not for anything else. Like there is no other reason to make a decision when you're a parent. You know what I mean? Like that's the only decision.
Exactly why I'm not going to be a parent.
People who make those stances, like I always get weirded out when people rag on other people. Like, when you gonna have babies? When you gonna have? Look,
never.
Bringing another life into this world is the last thing that you should do and take lightly. Like, if you're not ready for your life to be about this other person, don't fucking do it.
And not only that, though, but let's be honest, all right? Let's be completely real, all right? Since we want to throw all these cards out on the table, I got a few kings and aces here.
Let's see them.
I am not the type of person that a woman should have a child by. I'm an orphan. I had a violent history. I was deployed to war. I was abused as a child. And yet some dumbass girl would actually get pregnant by me. Why would you do that?
Yo.
I'm being completely real. Like,
no.
There are dudes out there with histories worse than mine, and these girls will get pregnant by these dudes. Why? This dude can't even qualify for a college loan. And you want your second baby by him, your third baby by him? He making less than $30,000 a year? And this is the suitable candidate you want as a constituent fundamental component of the nucleus of your family?
No, man. But people don't use that much forethought. It's about what's in the moment. So if I see this other person here that I know is a fucking mess, and I know that if I attach my life to theirs, they're going to fuck my life up. If we have a kid, the kid life going to be fucked up, whether we together or not. But that takes way too much forethought, way too much being honest with yourself and with about the person who you're considering as a mate. that more than that than people are willing to use. It's all about just what's in the moment. It feels good right now, so we gonna do it.
Right.
We live in a society with pretty advanced medical and technological things. Like, there's so many ways to not get pregnant. It's really like, even if you don't care about um, diseases or infections, there's so many ways to not get pregnant. More ways to not get pregnant than not contract a disease. Like, it's
Mm,
really, really easy to not get pregnant. In fact, it's should be more difficult to get pregnant, even when you're trying, than to not get pregnant in this day and age. Like, it just makes no sense. Especially when you've had multiple kids by the same person. Like, as a grown woman, in all seriousness, you know your body. You know when you should and shouldn't do something already. And then you don't take any precaution. Are you fucking fine?
Right. But and
okay.
while that may be true, and while that may be
Mm,
true, this is a conversation that should have been had with someone's parents, preferably both of them, right? But when you got one parent that hates the other for whatever reason, whether they felt slighted or whatever, these lessons don't get passed along because there's too much animosity for a parent to think straight. You're already at a disadvantaged situation because both parents aren't in the home. We think that's okay. We are fully comfortable with this idea. It's like, girl, I got it. Or it's all right, homie, I got it. I feel the same way about single fathers. I mean, I'm not saying that, that there aren't extenuating circumstances for everybody's situation. But generally, if you do have a child with somebody, and I'm speaking as a person who don't have any kids, so I know people would instantly be like, well, how would you know? You ain't got no kids. You're right. Because I feel like I am not fatherhood material. Therefore, uh, I would never force my lifestyle and the consequences of what I've gone through on a child. Like, I feel like that'd be the ultimate. I would be extremely pissed at my father for bringing me into this world under those circumstances. That's just me. I'm a little bit different because I'm an orphan and I don't have those attachments to like family and moms and dads. Like, those are just fucking people to me. So I could understand not being damaged goods in that way. I'm sure other people are like, oh, I just want to raise my daughter and I just want to raise my son. Hey, that's great. I'm broken, so it's a little bit different for me.
yeah, man. But I say this with the utmost respect. We need more people with the type of mindset that you have. Because if we did, we wouldn't have nearly as much madness going on in the community that we do now.
Or you would have had so much madness that the world would have consumed itself. I'm just kidding.
In which case, we wouldn't be around to observe the madness. We'd
That's
just
true.
be out in nowhere.
All
So
right,
either way, we
yeah.
win. Either way, we win. And before you go, I want you let me ask you one thing, Greydon, because now that we've gone off on this serious thing, there's something that I've been
That was
trying.
serious? That's not serious. You haven't even seen me serious yet.
With you hulking out with the vein in your neck just
Oh man,
pulsating.
I
That
yeah,
was
I
oh
can go
shit.
pretty nuclear. But go ahead. I'm
Oh
sorry.
man, well then I'm gonna have you back on the show.
You should.
But but I want you to help me tell this to Danny. Let me know if this makes sense. Because whenever we start having these conversations, Danny, for some reason, tries to make sense of what's going on with people. I keep trying to tell her
Oh my god.
we ain't running off. You need someone who's running off of logic and is making like actual decisions. Like you said, hey, look at my life, look at the condition I'm in, look at my background. I really don't need to be having a kid. Or even, hey, I ain't got all my shit together. Maybe we shouldn't do this right now. The vast majority of people are not going to do that because logic, way in the back seat, way in the back fucking seat. Emotions, what feels good in the moment, that is how people will operate off of way before they go to logic. The vast majority of people, just the way our minds work.
Yeah, you're not lying. I mean, you're dealing fundamentally with something that's by its nature irrational.
Right.
I mean, human beings like to play as if they're rational creatures, but it's a controlled rationalism.
Mm.
It's like we slip into our kind of base animalistic state at times where ration is thrown to the wind and you do some pretty irrational things.
Oh yeah.
Because you're in an irrational
Excuse me.
situation.
Like most of us, I'm sure most of the people walking the earth right now are products of irrationality.
Yeah.
Now, whether that ended up good or bad, depends situation from situation. But most of us are here because somebody somewhere won't think it. Because if they had stopped to think, should I do this and have this baby, and I have no life skills or education or money or understanding of life, what's up, Danny? What's up?
No, I'm just saying me. That's me. The jury's still out on whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. But
I'd like to think, mostly, I think it was a good thing. Most of the time, I think it was a good thing. There's like 2.222% of the time where I'm like, I'm playing. It's
I
all
think
good.
it's up for debate. It's up for that school.
Definitely up for debate. But we have had one hell of a night. This was even better than I thought it was because my man Greydon Square came through showing us love, and I can't thank you enough for coming on. Me and Danny, we're going to, talk about a few more things. The night is yet young. Neither of us have to work tomorrow, so we got a few more things to talk about. But Greydon Square, thank you for being on, man. Definitely won't be the last time. Got to have you back on to talk about some more stuff.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate you both.
Hell yeah, man. All right, be good.
All right, man. Peace, peace. Bye,
All
Danny.
right, later.
It's nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.